Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel Iturrate, and the MMA detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy. Welcome back, everybody. Lytes Out Podcast, another one of our favorite things, deep dives. Now, this is going to be a real fun one for you guys. You know, we like to go in deep and get some history, get some culture to you unheathenous swines. We want to educate you guys. And right now, we actually got a guy who started fighting before me, which is hard to do. Nick Nutter started in 1997. Some of you people weren't even born. Probably, I don't know who's watching. But Nick, how you doing, bub?
Not too bad. How about you?
Oh, man, just living the dream. So we have a lot to cover with you. Like I said, you fought nothing but unbelievable tough guys at the beginning of this sport.
Yes. Unfortunately, that's the case.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
right, so,
just to put it in context, Nick fought in November of 1997, then followed it up with a fight in early 98. Both of them, and snuck one a single fight in Brazil, but those two other ones were 8-man tournaments. Fighting for legendary promoter Frederico Lapenda in Israel, in Brazil. So it's like there's a lot to talk about. He's a representative of the Hammer House, so we got a whole bunch of stuff there, and an All-American wrestler. So he was one of those first wave of wrestlers that really impacted the sport. Mike, take it away, bro.
Okay, so Nick, we got a lot going on with you, even though it's like a real short career. Chris, I, and Miguel, we love to concentrate on the guys with like 50 fights because we just kind of like go through history. But looking at your record, it's kind of, you're almost kind of like a forgotten footnote because, like you said, your first fight was in 97. But when you look at your record, it's incredibly impressive. But before that, let's talk about how you met Mark Coleman and became a part of Hammer House.
All right. So out of high school wrestling, I was sort of a phenom. I was a little skinny. I had skinny arms, skinny legs. Coleman laughed at that, but I was the first wrestler to ever win the Triple Crown, which is Junior Nationals, Greco-Roman, freestyle, and then the high school nationals in the same year. So, so that was sort of cool. I got out of that, but then I went to Ohio State, and the people in front of me were Kevin Randleman, Rex Holman, and obviously Mark Coleman. And he knew that the one thing I needed was strength. So, one funny thing is he did like wrestling me. And what he said is the one thing he liked about it was that I smelled good. He said not a lot of the heavyweights smelled good. So he didn't mind wrestling with me every day because I did use deodorant and groomed myself. So that was a positive for me. So anyways, I got there.
Right. As opposed to like maybe catching crabs from like a Kevin Randleman. Okay, so go ahead. I apologize.
I can hear Coleman saying that too. You smell good.
No, he's like, no, the only reason why I really grabbed you is because you didn't stink. And that was a compliment. So anyways, I was obviously, behind some tough guys. Strength was the issue. So Coleman sort of took me under his wing and got me in the weight program and got me lifting and started getting me strong. It ended up, he's 10 years older than me. I'm 46. I believe he's 56, but he was living on campus with his girlfriend. They ended up getting in a fight, and he basically said, Nutter, I'm moving in with you. I'm like, okay. I really didn't have a choice. So I told my roommates, like, hey, my coach is moving in. And they were not happy about it. They're like, he's not going to pay, but pay rent. And he really didn't. But what he did was he was sort of like our dad. There's times like we were going to go out, and he's like, okay, go up in my dresser, open the second drawer, go in this, the white sock. You get $40. And he took care of us, sort of like a dad figure, big brother. So he paid his rent in one way or the other. So I guess the question is, how did I get involved with Coleman? when he moved in with me, that's sort of when, our relationship really took off. He knew, my biggest weakness was my weakness. And, if you know anything about Coleman or the Hammer House, the fighters are pretty strong. So he took me under his wing, and, that's how that evolved. Now, I don't know if you want me to go right into how I got into fighting with him, or I'll pause at that moment. But the whole fighting thing, why, and even how I got into it is a crazy story in itself.
Let's have it. Yeah, keep going, dude. We're good. We got a million questions. If you got some good stuff, just bring it.
Throw it out.
So, okay, you, Miguel, you said my first fight was 1997. So this is probably towards the end of 1996. I was with my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. And at this point, Coleman's already won UFC 10. He's just running through people. And Coleman's like, Nutter, you should fight. I'm like, you're crazy. Like, I'm the guy at the party that is doing the keg stand, and I'm Frank the Tank. I've never really been in a fist fight in my life. I'm the fun guy. And Coleman's like, Nutter, UFC is easy. Like, wrestling you and Randleman and training is 10 times harder than anybody I fought. And I went home and I told my wife this, who was my girlfriend. I said, Amy, Coleman thinks I should fight. And she's like, oh my God, you get your ass kicked. Like, you're not a fighter. You're like a pussy. I'm like, that pissed me off. So I had this big flip phone, and I opened it up and I called Coleman. I'm like, I had a couple beers in me and maybe some chicken wings at Buffalo Wild Wings. And my wife is sitting next to me, and Coleman unfortunately answers. And I get on the phone. I say, Coleman, it's Nutter. He's like, what's up? I'm like, you know how you said you want me to fight? He's like, yeah. I'm like, let's do this. He's like, you serious? I'm like, yeah, I'm serious. And I'm really just trying to like piss off my wife / girlfriend. And he's like, okay. So
you ain't getting out of that. You're not getting out of that.
No, I couldn't get out of it.
No.
So I hung up my phone and, commenced to eating the rest of my wings and drinking my beer. Coleman calls me the next morning. Nutter, I got you a fight, and I'm a little hungover and I'm not happy about it. He's like, hey, in 2 months, you're going to Tel Aviv, Israel to fight. I'm like, oh boy.
Wow.
So, I had never been in a street fight in my life or anything.
Okay,
the last thing I really want to do was fight.
So you're not, because we that's kind of like a common question, like with some of the guys such as yourself, did you get in a lot of street fights? What was your demeanor? And it's surprising that like most of the guys go, no, I never really been in a fight before. And I think this would come, Chris, I think we've talked about this before. Mark Coleman has a weird ability to like make people do things that they normally would never, ever do. And he would just be shocked if you didn't do it. Well, and this sounds like one of those situations.
It's kind of like when he just walks in and said, I'm moving in with you. It wasn't a question. They said, hey, you're going to fight. It's kind of like, I guess I'm going to fight. He has an ability to just kind of, when he tells you something, like, I guess that's what's happening. You know what I mean? So, but your whole story there reminds me of, how you're at a party or something, or hanging out with some friends for a long time, and you're drinking, you're about 12 beers in, you're like, tomorrow we're going to get up at 6:30 and run, and then it is like you wake up at 9 and it never happened. Well, that's what you did, and Mark called you and it had to happen then, right? So pretty much you're drinking, I'm going to fight. Yeah, whatever. You're fighting in 2 months in Tel Aviv. Ooh, I better learn how to fight a little bit, right?
No, that's exactly it. And that was a good analogy. Like whatever he said, you ended up doing. The funny thing is that Coleman at Ohio State, he honestly, he says, Nutter, you took me down twice in your life. And one of the times I tore his ACL, like after he was UFC champ. Randleman never took him down. I mean, if Randleman was alive, he'd tell you he never took him down. But that's how intimidating he was. If he said, I'm moving in, well, shit, I ain't got much to say.
Yeah. I don't try not to eat all my food.
Yeah. Well, we got to fight about chicken too. He says you only flip chicken one time, and we honestly got in almost a fist fight about how many times you're allowed to flip chicken, which is a funny story. We joke about it to this day, but I think you can flip it as many times as you want.
Until it's done.
Huh?
Until it's done.
Well, you don't want to tell Coleman
times.
that because they'll rip your head off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's what does Mark say? Is it 2 times?
no, he's
Just what?
it's only 2. You got to cook it on one side. You get your opportunity on the other side, and it's done. You don't flip it more than that. And why we almost honestly got into a throwdown.
What? That sounds personal.
Yeah. I think he's learned though, because you watch Gordon Ramsay talk about flipping a skillet steak multiple times. Honestly, if I looked at my phone, he would say, Nutter, you might be onto something. But this whole flipping the chicken and cooking stuff is an inside joke between us.
Okay, so Miguel, the date on his first fight, I think I've got my notes confused. Is it his first fight is that January, the tournament fight in Brazil, is that January 1st, 1998?
No, the January 1st fight's a single fight in Brazil. He follows it. The original
Against
first
Elias
fight,
Rodrigues.
yes, is November 12th, 1997, is the Tel Aviv show.
All right,
That's
I got it. So January 1st, 1998. So you're talking, you stayed sober. I mean, you're a college student, essentially, right after college. So you stayed sober all throughout the holidays for a January 1st, 1998 fight.
I did. Yeah.
That's impressive. That's impressive. All right. So what were your takeaways from fighting in Brazil your first time? And I mean, you're a son of a school teacher. What was your parents' reaction?
Wait, hold on.
You're skipping a fight. No, in Tel Aviv.
You're skipping his Israel 8-man tournament. So
did you start at the Israel or did you start with Elias Rodrigues?
No. He dove right into an 8-man tournament. The Elias Rodrigues is just a single fight.
Okay. Hold on. My notes, I texted them to myself and they got jumbled. It's not my fault.
Okay, don't worry.
I apologize. November 12th, 1997, 8-man tournament, International Absolute Fighting Council, Tel Aviv, Israel. Correct?
Yes.
So,
Okay,
but what does Coleman tell you about this show? He goes, "You're fighting in Israel." He's like, "Who's the promoter? Like, what do you know actually about what was going on there?"
Good point.
So the weird thing is, the day after I talked to Coleman and I said I wanted to fight, he told me I have a fight in Israel. And back then, you had to go to the World Wide Web and do the dial-up with the phone and everything. And I ended up seeing my name on this. And at that point, I got sort of scared straight. To me, in football, I was all state in football. I was, wrestling. And, your coach says, sprint hard. What's the worst that could happen? You get tackled hard. In wrestling, you might get pinned. But back then with, no rules, no holds barred, it was a little scary. So at that point, I was scared to death. Like, I was honestly afraid of dying. So asked if I stayed sober through the holidays. I had 2 months to train and I didn't touch anything. So we trained, we went out to Arizona. We trained with Mark Kerr for a while, for about 3 or 4 weeks prior to my first fight. Came back into town. It's 2 days before we're ready to leave for Israel. And, we get a call. Coleman starts talking to the promoters. The Israeli government wouldn't allow this type of fighting, which is weird because everybody in Israel has a machine gun. So I would think that, gloves up, guns down would be a good thing. But so moral of the story is, the day before my flight to Israel, they said the fight's off. And I basically was training my ass off, didn't make money. I was working out in Arizona with Kerr and Coleman, working hard, and haven't really enjoyed life. And the fight was off. So I called up my one buddy named Jack Cahill, and I decided it was time to go out and have a little fun. So I made up for 2 months of, not partying in one night. And we had quite a bit of fun in Columbus. Down hard. Coleman calls me about 9 or 10 in the morning, and I answer the phone with, like I tried to do to my mom many times when I was in college. She'd call me like on a Saturday morning acting like I wasn't hungover. And Nick, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing good, Mom. She's like, are you sleeping? Are you taking care of yourself? Sort of the same thing. But Coleman calls me and says, Nutter, hey, you still want to fight? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Thinking the fight's going to be in a couple weeks. He's like, all right, I'll be over in 15 minutes. You got to get on the plane. Like, oh, shit. So I got out of bed and I'm thinking I got 15 minutes. I grab a duffel bag and I start throwing stuff in it, like cologne and a couple pairs of shorts and a shirt. And as I'm doing this, I ended up vomiting from being hungover. Coleman gets to my house. He honks the horn. I run out there. He pops up his hood and I go to throw my bag in and I don't see another bag in there, which was weird. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's in the passenger seat or something. So I throw my bag in and I jump in the front seat, sick as a dog. And we started driving to the airport. I'm like, okay, what's up? So when's the fight? Obviously it's going on. Is it in a couple of days? He's like, no, it's honestly, you're going to arrive at 6 p.m. and the fight's at 8. I'm like, oh, all right. I go, all right, so we got this. And he's like, no, it's not we. The flights to Israel are too expensive. And he says, you're by yourself, Nutter. I'm like, oh, God. First of all, I didn't want to fight to begin with, let alone not having him in my corner. Never left the country. I mean, I went to Canada to go gamble with my grandma in like Windsor a couple times, but never left the country. He basically says, Nutter, you got to go. So he drives me to the airport.
Wait. Have you cornered anybody at this point?
I cornered Coleman in his very first UFC 10.
Oh, okay. So at least you've been to a live event. Okay, all right, that's good.
A live event, and I do remember the weirdness of hearing the thuds, of the bare knuckles on the skull, which is different than I've been doing a lot of coaching lately, but the gloves make a difference. But to just hear a bare knuckle on the skull is weird. And I remember Modi Hornstein, his very first fight, he just the licks he was giving him, it was uncomfortable and scary.
Okay, so you go to Brazil alone. Okay, how long of a plane ride is it?
So,
Tel Aviv. You go to Tel Aviv alone. How long of a plane ride is it?
It's probably a 7 or 8 hour flight.
That's it?
Yeah.
No. For real?
Well, no, you had to probably go to Holland or Germany
or New York
first.
No, we went to New York, and then from New York to Israel was 8 hours.
Okay. All right. I can see that. Yeah, I can see from New York the direct flight. I do also want to mention, Nick, just so you know, we consider ourselves a little bit of historians here. I think you probably took fights under the worst possible conditions I've ever heard. No corner in Israel for Lapenda.
Well,
let's hear this.
Miguel, to play devil's advocate here, we've talked about Mark Coleman's cornering. He may have been in a better spot.
You're right. It scares the hell out of you when you're in the corner.
On a different note, man, I remember I had a lot of fights. Well, not a lot. I probably had at least 10 fights, 12 fights when I went over to Japan for my first time. And they got me there 5 or 6 days early. And man, the first 3 days I felt terrible. I remember the second day I was there, went and worked out the gym, and I was like, man, I got no wind. And then the next day, same thing happened. I was like, I'm not ready for the fight. But then the third day I leveled off. I don't see how you could possibly go there and fight within a couple hours or even the next day or the day after that. I don't see how it's possible without just totally gassing out, because jet lag's a real thing.
No, Nick, did you even see your hotel prior to the fight, or did you go from the airport to the venue?
I'll tell you about that real quick, which is a funny story in itself. But you guys say I picked the worst fighting options available. I honestly didn't know I had a chance.
Or a choice.
It was a way out.
Yeah, that was just it. That's what it was.
It's okay, you're going.
Hopefully the plane gets lost.
I'm a rule follower. If my dad says I got to do it, that's what I have to do. So we get to New York. I meet who are the two guys? The other Americans were Zane Frazier
and Joe Charles.
Man, Joe Charles. So I got to meet them, and they were fun guys. We get on the plane to Israel, and I'm still sick. Honestly, you guys don't know how hard I hit it the night before. This is midday. And
I bet you he stank. I bet you during the fight, the fighters are going, man, he might be still drinking. I bet you it was coming out of your pores.
Well, maybe. I agree. I wouldn't put it past me. But so we get on the plane, and Zane and Joe were able to talk the flight attendants into letting them get first class seats. So they're up front, like relaxing. I'm back there with all the peasants and, really slumming it out and sick as a dog. I threw up on the plane. We finally land in Israel. It's probably 5:00 at night. And we get off the plane, and we're going through security. And like I said, there's people with machine guns all over.
It's an intense security checkpoint. Yes.
Yes. And I swear these kids are 15 years old with machine guns sitting around. It's not like old people. It was weird. So we end up getting in a van with the other fighters, the Russians, which was Maxim, Tarisov, and Igor Vovchanchin, and all these people. And for some reason, this is probably 12 hours after my drinking binge, we started driving, and we're going to go to the hotel. And so we're driving to the hotel, and the guy's like hitting the gas and then slamming on the brakes, hitting on the gas. And I'm like, listen, guys, I tell the translator, like, I got to get out. So in the middle of a highway in Israel, I get out of the car, this van with all the guys I'm going to fight, and I'm throwing up. And I hear these Russians like, whatever they're saying, but I know they're saying, I hope I get this fucker first round. And
I gotta be honest with you, Nick. I've actually done that the day of a fight too, but
okay,
it wasn't my fight; it was my show.
Yeah, you were the promoter.
Yeah.
So we get to the hotel, and I'm like, okay, is it tomorrow night the fight? They're like, no, run your bags upstairs. You got 10 minutes. We got to get to the venue. It starts at 7. It's already 6:30. I'm like, Jesus.
So there's no rules meeting then. All right, go ahead.
No rules meeting. No, I honestly don't know what the fuck I got myself into. And I'm in this situation because my wife called me a pussy. If I had to do all over, I'd rather just be a pussy.
Men have done worse things when their wives have said things like that. So I mean, let's
let me
put
ask
that
you
in proper context.
Let me ask you, Nick. So you were wrestling. You got a decent training camp, especially for those days. What were you weighing? 220?
No, I was a little big for that one. I was probably 250.
Okay, all right, cool.
Yeah.
That's uncomfortable in the back of the airplane, but yeah, 250. That's all I want to ask.
I wasn't dainty, that's for sure. So basically, we had 10 minutes to run our stuff upstairs. The driver of the van said, "Hey, friend, listen, you are sick. You need to go jump in the sea." And I'm speaking with a weird accent. I don't know if that's my Israeli accent, but
the best we're gonna get out of you.
Yeah, that's the best you're gonna get. But
I
ran upstairs. I put on my spandex shorts. I put on my wrestling shoes, a knee pad, and I had a jacket and a jump rope. So I came back downstairs. He's like, "No, go jump in the sea, the ocean." So in the back of our hotel was the Mediterranean Sea, and I ran out there. And I jumped in. I took my shoes off, but I had my, fighting shorts on and whatnot. But I jumped in there, and I swear to gosh, it was like an elixir. It made me feel so much better.
Really?
Well, it was cold. It was refreshing. It was good. The salt water. So I'm running now with my shoes. I'm wet with my hair, my pants. I have no.
Dude, they must have thought there was a mental patient that they picked up.
Hey, as it turns out, the driver gave you good advice. Jump in the sea. Coleman wouldn't have told you to jump in the sea.
No.
Probably accidentally. It was accidental good advice.
Yeah, in hindsight, I'm glad he wasn't there. I lost my first round match.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
All right, so all right, let's talk about kind of like how we got here. Let's talk about how we got here.
But
who did you fight?
Like, what did you eat? Did you eat on the airplane? Did they have food for you? Anything like that? Or they
were you hydrating with orange juice? That's kind of where I'm at with this.
You know what? I took sips of water, maybe orange juice. I do remember one time I went to go check on Zane and
Joe
Charles.
and I saw them like, finishing their filet mignon with the flight attendants massaging them. And then I got shooed back to the back, like, go back there and eat your corn dog. So I don't know. I probably had a corn dog and a orange juice and a water in me at this point.
Now you get to the airport, you go to your hotel, now you get to the venue. What's your impression of Frederico Lapenda at this point, who happens to be the promoter of the event?
So Frederico, I did meet in New York and I got to talk to him and he was cool. I love Frederico. He was my quarter man, honestly.
Yes, he was.
All of my fights for that one. And, he gave me good wisdom. It was my first fight. And, he's like, take the guy down. He's going to scramble after he gets taken down because he's scared. Let him wiggle himself out and, calm down and then unleash the ground and pound, which was good advice because had he not said that, I probably would have taken him down and then just started flailing and I would have lost position. He would have escaped and then I'd have been in bigger trouble. But he was honestly, and you're joking about Coleman not being a good quarter man, but Frederico was an awesome quarter man.
Really?
Yeah, he had everything figured out. He's like, I took him down. He's like, whoa. Okay, slow down. Just hold your position. He's like, and my thing back then is I didn't mind being in somebody's guard when headbutts were allowed. I think when headbutts were not allowed, that changed the sport quite a bit. But I will be in anybody's guard, and my goal is to get you down, stay in your guard, drag you over to the cage, get your neck crunched up on the side, and at that point, then I'm going to come down and start laying down the punches and headbutts. When the sport took away headbutts, it really hurt the wrestler, in my opinion.
Now, let me ask you, in the two months of training with Coleman and stuff, like Coleman took out 7 with like a head squeeze, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, but so you probably had some basic moves. I remember Kerr used that chin in the eye move too, which is pretty good. Were you ready with that stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have a jiu-jitsu instructor?
No.
Okay.
No. Now, the weird thing with our Hammer House is I was sort of the student with Coleman and Randleman and everybody. I was, I was the intellectual one that said, okay, we got to watch out for this arm bar. How do you set it up? And I was the guy that sort of scouted. And then I'd go in and like Randleman and Coleman, like, okay, this is an arm bar. You got to watch for this. But it sounds weird, but I was
like pre-YouTube planning from videotapes. Right.
Exactly. Yes. But they're like, okay, I won't let them do that. And gosh darn it, for the most part, they didn't let him do it. Now, obviously, Father Time allowed many, or Fedor got Coleman quite a few times at the armbar and Nogueira and whatnot. But I don't know. I was a thinker, I would imagine. And I mean, even in our fight with Tarisov, my very first fight, he was going for a triangle. And I just knew to like, the one thing I need to do is make sure that one leg doesn't come up over my shoulder. And if you watch the fight, I sort of trap his knee. I pin his knee down with my knee. But I was the, believe it or not, the intellectual one of Hammer House.
I do believe that. I don't think that's
we've talked for 5 minutes. We figured it out.
Yeah. I think the first 30 seconds, we kind of understood that.
Well, so Nick, talk about a little bit about Maxim Tarisov. He's a little bit of a guy that we all appreciate here because he was one of Oleg Taktarov's training partners way back, while they were in Russia together. And Oleg, when we mentioned him, kind of laughed and referred to him as his like nerdy brother. And he is kind of like the skinny, like wears glasses, like outside of the ring and stuff. But he's also a sambo fighter, like you said, with a guard and trying for a triangle and stuff. So, talk about him and what that was like.
So I don't know who I'm fighting. they called me to the ring. He was introduced first, and I walk in the ring and I see this sort of, no disrespect, but a skinny guy. I don't know if he weighed 200 pounds, but, skinny. He did look like he's been in some fights. He had a crooked nose, a cauliflower ear.
Okay, wait. So in the back room, there wasn't a lineup of who you were fighting. You found out when you got called out.
Pretty much, yes. Now I knew who I had in the semifinals because I was the first fight of the night, but I had no idea who I was fighting.
And now it's in the ring, right? It's not in a cage. It's in the ring.
It was a cage. This one was
Raw.
Which I fought in a ring once and I hated it. I fell through the ropes. It was horrible.
Yeah.
So
all right. So let's stay on Maxim Tarisov. Okay, so bring us through the fight.
Okay, so I see this like skinny Russian guy that looks a little weathered, and I'm like, okay, this guy, I can't lose to him because I probably outweigh him by 50 or 60 pounds. But he does look like he's been in some damage in his life, probably more than I have. So, I don't know if he's a kickboxer. Back then, we didn't know anything about our fighters. I didn't know if he was a kickboxer, if he was jiu-jitsu or sambo or anything. All I knew was my one thing, wrestling. I'm going to take you down and try to ground and pound you. So they say fight, and I, circle a little bit. I see like he's really, looking to kick me with his back leg. I go for a double leg, and I totally missed. I think I'm the first fighter to ever miss 100% on a double leg. Even the announcer's like, wow, you don't see that.
Oh, okay, so Nick, how were your nerves at this time?
Horrible.
What was it like backstage? Like, who did you warm up with?
Oh, horrible.
My jump rope.
So you had no one back there talking to you?
Honestly, from the time I got to the arena, my pants are still wet with salt water on them from the sea. They said, Nick, you're up in 5 minutes. I hit maybe 3 minutes of a jump rope, talked to Frederico. And as we're talking, they're like, Nick Nutter. And I'm walking out there. Honestly, from the time I got to the arena till I was walking out there was at the most 6 minutes.
Hey, that's probably for the best, to be honest with you, man. No time to sit there and think about it.
They were probably waiting for you. It's like, shit, the crowd's like getting restless.
Yeah. We just went through your entrance music twice. Where have you been?
But that is really insane. But
now think about this from a promoter's standpoint. You got guys getting there less than 10 minutes before they're supposed to hit the ring. Man. I couldn't imagine feeling that. And you got your plane ticket last minute. They're not going to allow it in Israel. You got told that the bout got canceled. Frederico Lapenda, that stuff like that takes years off of your life. And English is not his first language. He speaks Portuguese, and he's operating an event in Israel.
Right.
With heavy Russian ties. Don't forget the heavy Russian ties.
Absolutely. Yes, heavy Russian ties. Okay, so you fight Tarisov, and how was his squeeze? When did you finally settle in? When did you get comfortable? Because everyone's first fight's their worst.
Okay, so like I said, the worst thing that could happen is I took my shot and I honestly just hit air. I missed. I didn't even touch his legs.
I think you hit the fence.
Huh?
You hit the fence.
No, I missed the fence. Thank God, because it was.
Did you miss it? It was close on the video. I watched it.
So in the ref or the commentator made fun of it. I'm thinking, oh shit, this is gonna be horrible. You always hear of, back then you always hear of in everybody's hometown, there's Sensei Daryl or Sensei Mark, who is he's not allowed in the UFC because
it's too dangerous.
Death moves.
Yeah.
But he smokes cigarettes and he's fat. And I'm like, there's no way Sensei Mike is gonna fucking kick my ass. I guarantee it. But I'm thinking I might have just ran into Sensei Mike and he's gonna embarrass me in front of everybody. By the grace of God, I took another shot and I took him down. He did try some, submissions. I think, and you would know better than me, but I think he was a submission fighter, correct?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Okay. He did sambo.
Okay. But after a couple minutes, And honestly, Frederico said, hold the position. And that maybe went on for 2 minutes. And then finally he's like, okay, go ahead, unleash yourself. And I ended up just, getting up and doing the ground and pound headbutts. And he ended
arm
up,
isolations too. You got him with a couple arm isolations, and you stuck in some real good punches. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm good at that stuff. Like, if I used to be like, okay, if I take away that arm, he can't defend this left hook coming over from the top. So I don't know. I think I had an uncanny ability to sort of just know where people's supports are.
Just a fight IQ. Yeah, you had a good fight IQ.
Yeah, I had a fight IQ probably before fight IQ was a thing. But no, I'm going to trap that arm down. And now, obviously, I'm going to go heavy with the left hand to the head until
wait. Is that something you guys practiced at Hammer House, or is that just something you did in that fight?
It's probably something I did in the fight. Like I said, I was the one in Hammer House with the IQ. Coleman just like, hey, I don't give a fuck. If you got both my arms, I'll hit you with my shoulders. Like, but I tried to think a little bit more probably. And
that's not difficult, but go ahead.
And we love Mark.
Yeah, Mark's our guy. I just saw Mark last week. That's my buddy. Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
all right. So you get your hand raised. You actually.
Hold on, how did you finish him? How did you finish him? Did you finish him?
He tapped out from strikes, ground and pound.
Ooh. Now, let me ask. What was the time limit on the fight?
There was none.
Yeah.
No. That's not true. What it is was there were 30-minute rounds, and what happens is after that 30-minute round, if there was no winner, even if a guy was so dominant, they would go for a 5-minute overtime.
Okay.
Nick, I went crazy figuring it out. I saw the format. It didn't happen on this event, but it was on the next one. So I figured it's Frederico Lapenda, same kind of rule set. So it's a 30-minute. So essentially what he just agreed to is he's got 3 fights, 90 potential minutes with an extra 5 minutes of each overtime on a flight that he gets to the event 10 minutes before he hits the ring, and he's hungover.
So Mike, I did not know that until I was fighting Igor. And
wait. That's the finals.
Okay,
we're gonna go step by. This is good stuff.
Okay, but I did not know those rules, but I was illuminated to it during that fight, and that's probably a good reason why I tapped, because okay.
Nick, you're ruining the ending. Okay, it's spoiler alert.
Sorry.
Spoiler alert. Okay,
go to the next.
So what happens is, Nick, you win that fight.
Yes.
You have an adrenaline dump after that.
Oh, I feel good now, because now I can go back and tell my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, like, shut up.
Not a pussy.
I'm not a pussy.
Told you. Yeah, I showed you.
I told you.
I flew halfway across the world, but I showed you.
Okay. Wait, I gotta
real quick too. What is the purse for this thing? Okay. What do you get paid to show up? What do you get paid to win? We know that.
Okay. So for that tournament, to win it was $10,000. To show up was $1,000. If you made the semifinals, $2,500. If you made the finals, $5,000.
Okay.
So 1,000, 2,500, 5,000, 10,000.
I will also I'll point out that after the first fight, you can call your wife, with a little bit of honor, but you still have 2 more fights before you can call Coleman.
True. Yes. Nice job.
True. That's true. Okay. So
between us, I was totally fine with that. I didn't care if I lost to Joe.
Okay. Abu Dhabi veteran Joe Charles, I might add.
Coleman's calling me right now.
There's Coleman on the line.
Yeah.
I'm gonna dump him. Okay.
All right. So let's do a little side note. So I call Mark in regards to yourself, just to kind of get his feel for you about a week ago, about 4 days ago, and he was telling me Green hadn't fought before, but it was with the money and stuff like that. And Mark goes, yeah, but he had kind of like an easy road to the finals, so it's something that I was comfortable with. And I said, well, that's really not true. Maxim Tarisov, after that bout, won 18 fights in a row and never lost. Like, that was his last loss. So he has 18 fights in a row, wins everybody, and he gets like legit competition. And he's Oleg Taktarov's like main training partner and a very accomplished Sambo guy. And Mark goes, man, I wonder if Nick knows that.
Hey, let me ask you too. I know Maxim. I met him once. His English is pretty good. Did you have any interactions with him, or what was that like?
Yes, we did. So after the fights, they allowed us to stay there for 3 days in Israel. I got to go to Jerusalem and Bethlehem.
That's super cool.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah. I ended up hanging out with the Russians, went to dinner with him. He was a really cool guy. Igor is awesome. Everybody was awesome. And I don't know, it was really cool. We had a translator, but I don't know, they seem like brothers. Any fighter I've ever been with, I've always felt like there is an honor and a code. Like, hey, if you're willing to do this, I don't know. I have a feeling like if things went down in Israel, they would have had my back just from being a fighter brothers. But
that's
Maxim
cool.
Was awesome. Igor is crazy awesome. Everybody was awesome. We shook hands. We did what we had to do, but afterwards we drank a few beers and did other things and had fun together.
Nice.
That's good. So let's go to round two. So round two is against Joe Charles. Now, Joe Charles has got kind of like a deceiving record because it's lopsided in regards to wins and losses, but he's also got 2 wins in Abu Dhabi. So, like, he's not somebody that you can discount. Like, it's real easy to look at his record and go, he's just a body. But the guy's got 2 legit wins in Abu Dhabi, and he's got 4 matches there. And, like, he's not a slouch either. So you're in round 2. What was the time period between round 1 and 2? And who did you think at that point that you were going to meet in the finals after watching the first round?
Well, what was awesome was I was the first fight.
That's the best.
Yes. So I got to sit there. Joe had a big Russian wrestler that he ended up getting in a ankle or some sort of heel hook and beat him. But I would not have wanted to fight that guy. I'd rather fight Joe because he was a big wrestler and we probably would have had a different bout. And the semifinals went, Zane Frazier fought this guy, ended up losing, which he was silly. He went for a takedown and Zane's a striker.
Striker, yeah.
Screwed up, in my opinion. He went for a low single and got pounded. And Igor took care of his guy. Obviously I knew I had Joe, but at this point, confidence started flowing in me. I was so afraid of that first fight. And, I believed my wife that I was a pussy and I didn't belong there. But after I beat him, I looked at Joe, and although he's my buddy and we played cards and everything, I'm like, he was a little older than me. I'm like, I think I'm going to smash him. So I even thought, let's go. I'm going to throw hands with Joe. Like, I'm going to knock him out. So I walked across the cage and I threw a jab and he hit me with the counter right in the chin. And I saw stars and I went right to immediate mode. Like, I just did like a big double leg. And, the one thing I've always been known for in my wrestling is I was a thrower, like the king of the 5-point suplex, like a double over suplex, a double under suplex.
Kind of like myself, Chris.
Very similar. Yeah.
Just as a reference for yourself.
No, I ended up a double under and I tried to suplex, but he had good hips. I ended up getting the takedown, but he was no slouch at this point. I ended up getting him down and worked him to the corner. He did almost get me in like a sneaky ankle lock, but at the end of the day, I got on top, and I remember a hammer fist. I faked it and he went to block and I hit him and he's like, I'm good. I remember him saying, I'm good, I'm done. And I didn't hit him again because I was prom king in 1992 at Buckeye High School. So I got respect.
That weighed into it. I got you.
Yeah. No, he said I'm good and I didn't hit him again. So
right.
I'm good.
Yes. So that's how I got it through him.
All right. So now you're done with round 2. Where are you physically? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling amazing at this point.
Really?
Yeah.
Were you hydrating in between fights?
Yes. The hangover's gone. The confidence and
adrenaline.
Go ahead.
Well, I was also going to mention it. You had 5 and 6 minute fights. That's pretty much as a wrestler. You're used to fighting a couple of times, right? So and you didn't get really hurt. So now you're competing. You're in your world.
Right.
Okay. So now check this out. So now he's in the finals. All right, where he's going to meet Igor Vovchanchin.
And I'm sure he didn't understand.
Well,
here who he was. He looked like
you didn't know who he was?
No, he was a little guy. I'm like,
okay,
I'm gonna smash this little dude.
So
how did he win his last fight? How did he win the second fight?
Let's talk about Igor's road to the finals.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about your road. So Igor beats Valery Playev in 7 minutes and 13 seconds KO.
Wow.
At which point he fights Mikhail, is it Arvetizian, another Russian guy?
Arvetizian.
Where he goes the entire 30-minute round.
Whoa!
And has to do a 5-minute overtime period.
Mike, let me just say this. You're ruining my toughness by telling me how awesome Igor is.
Yes. So let's go through the stats. So now you're going into the finals.
Okay,
here's the tournament stats so far. And this is like, for us bettors and stuff like that, like we're into this. So Nick Nutter has got 9 minutes and 44 seconds of total fighting with 2 KOs. Igor Vovchanchin has 42 minutes and 13 seconds of fighting with 1 KO and 1 decision.
Woo! It's a lot of mileage right there.
Right. That's a lot of bumpy roads. So what was the time between the quarterfinals and the finals?
Now, to be honest, I'd like to say it was an hour, but Igor was back in that cage within 10 minutes. Yeah.
Wow. Because that's a lot of time to kill. Like for a live event, that's a ton of time to kill. Man. Chris, the weird thing about this, these Russians had so many people there. Like I thought like the event was in like Moscow or something like that because of how loud the Russian crowd was. So I Google searched it. 1/5 of the Israeli population is actually from Russia.
Well done.
No, like I couldn't believe it. Like I'm like looking at Tel Aviv. I'm hearing these people screaming. I'm like, there's no way this was in Israel. This had to be in Russia. And it was
Little Russia.
Yeah. It was crazy.
I'd also like to point out here's a little bit of the problem because now we're going to open up the panorama a little bit here. 9 minutes versus 42 minutes. But what if I told you Igor had done 6 8-man tournaments before that?
Yeah, big difference.
And
that's the problem. He'd been through a lot of tournaments. He was close to 50 fights already in 97.
Oh my God.
So that 35 minutes was him pacing himself, thinking, I got this one. I just need to get to the finals. I don't want to, shoot my load all at once here.
Nick,
that's like if you watch that fight, that Mikhail Vovchancyn, he might have got the decision. If it's called the Russian Absolute Fighting Championships. So it was, even though Frederico ran it, it was also ran by the Russians, and they wanted Igor to win it. So,
so what you're saying is
got help with the decision, but this other guy was game.
So wait. What you're saying was it was a rigged election. I mean, there was Russian interference.
Once again, Russian interference.
Russian interference. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Vovchancyn, for those of us that are on the nerdy side, Vovchancyn is one of the guys that lost to Jeremy Horn in that famous IFC tournament. That I
think it was his opening round fight.
So, and by then he was 17-5. 17-4 in international MMA, and I'm looking at his career. So yeah, he was a legit dude, and that's so that had to give you confidence, Nick. The guy used up 35 minutes of Igor's time. You got to feel pretty good about that.
Oh God, yes. And he was.
And you had plenty of rest.
Oh, I was sitting there watching him, struggle for 35. They went 30 plus a 5-minute overtime. So I don't know. I was chilling back there, drinking iced tea and watching him get tired, thinking I'm going to crush. And he was little. He's only like
picking at the buffet. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is going to be easy.
Yeah, a lot of people that know Vovchanchin remember the Pride Vovchanchin where he fought as a heavyweight and he carried extra weight. You had a sharp, ripped up 200-pound brutalizer. You had him at his meanest.
All right, so take us through the Vovchanchin fight, because I think I noticed something. I don't want to talk about it. I'm going to let you say it, and if not, I'm going to mention it. But there was some fishy stuff in that bout. First off, like the corners were following the entire fight around, and it wasn't like Nutter's corner. It was Vovchanchin's. Like it was literally a group of guys wherever Nick was on the mat. They were following him around. If Coleman was there, there would have been a fist fight. For sure, there would have been a fist fight. So go ahead, Nick. Take us through the Vovchanchin fight through your eyes.
Okay. So what was cool at this point is, I had 3 cornermen. I had Zane, I had Joe, and
Joe Charles, and Frederico Lapenda.
Yes. So
you're collecting them. You're collecting cornermen along the way.
No,
that's good.
USA versus Russia at this point.
Yep.
However, there was probably 7 Russians in their corner. I don't know. I had no fear because I didn't know how good he was at the time. But I'm like, he's little, he's tired. And I went right across the cage. I ran him up against the cage. I slammed him, and I just went into ground and pound. And I ended up pounding him at like the 4-minute and 30-second mark. I ended up getting to his side back. You were allowed to do knees to the head. And I promise you, and I will show you the video, but I'm kneeing him to the head and he taps.
He did. Yes, he did. Did you get off of him at that point? Is that why you got off?
I stopped. I looked at the ref. I said, okay. He's like, look, and they had a communication in Russian that I couldn't understand, but I don't know what they said, but I assume it's, hey, listen, Igor, you're not done yet.
You're supposed to win.
Okay, here's the thing. If Coleman was there, he would have went crazy, and that bout would have been stopped.
I agree 100%. That's where I wish I had Coleman in my corner. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. The one time you needed Coleman.
The one time I need him. Other than that, he scares the hell out of me. Like
So Nick, why weren't you grabbing the cage at all?
What do you mean?
It appeared to be legal. So like put your hands in the cage and just kind of maintain your top position with a grip on the cage wall.
Why didn't I? Because I think I had a better one I had my hand behind his neck and I'd be able to pull him into my knee as I need him.
So essentially, Nick is arm isolating and jumping up and hitting Igor with knees. And he hits him with like 3 or 4 times. I mean, while Igor's back is on the ground and Igor's pinned against the cage. Like it's some serious ground and pound. And then there's like kind of like a weird commotion where Nick gets off of him. There's that conversation. And then the referee does not stop it. And then Nick, you had to earn another takedown. It was not easy, but you got it. So go ahead.
So let me backtrack a little bit here.
Okay.
I was telling you after Joe said I'm done, and I didn't hit him again. Shame on me. I should have kept hitting him until the ref stopped it. However, Igor tapped. The ref grabbed me and said, okay. They had an exchange. I'm like, are we done? Like Coleman would have jumped the cage and been done. Frederico was not in that position. So we went again. I need him three or four more times. He tapped again and the ref stopped it again. So it was 2 stops.
Yeah. Okay.
And at this point,
but I think that tap was on the blind side of the referee.
Why did he stop it then? Why the ref?
But I think that's why the referee didn't stop it. I think he did it to get you to stop.
Yes.
Okay, right there. Like Bobby the Brain Heenan in WWF, he's doing this. Yep.
So
a brilliant move, I might add, especially what you're talking 1997. Brilliant move.
It was. He got me. And at that point, after I stopped and looked at him, Igor moved his position so I couldn't knee him anymore. And he went south after that point.
And you're fading, I might add, at this point. I am fading.
I put my all into that.
Yeah, veteran move.
Yes, it was a veteran move. Good for him.
This is this guy's third fight, except it's the same day. You know what I mean?
And he's fighting Igor and basically the entire Ukrainian mob. But yeah, it's definitely hard work.
Miguel, I think there's some truth to that.
Wait, you think?
10,000, they might have only had to pay Igor a color TV or something.
Yeah. And on top of that, this whole network of shows, the Absolute shows, there was a tournament prior to that Igor won, and there was a tournament prior to that Igor came in second, that he lost to Ricardo Marai, one of Henzo's students, and those guys, those tournaments were all brutal. There were people that broke arms in the middle of the fights, and there was one guy who got knocked out with a kick to the face while getting up. And they restarted the fight. And they restarted the fight. He went to the fight, came back out, and they restarted. So if it didn't go their way, you know, until you got to the end of the fight, you never knew, you know. So how did they reset your talk? Go, Nick. I'm sorry.
Well, I lost my. Okay, so after that, he got in a position, and somehow, he caught me with an elbow in my nose, and now I'm bleeding like a sieve. I don't know. It was
no, Nick. I'm not. I know we're interrupting a lot, but is your wife's words echoing in your brain at this point?
No, because I already.
Okay.
He's already past that, Mike.
Oh, okay.
No.
And maybe she was right.
No, at this point, I'm thinking, as long as I won my first one, I'm not a pussy. You know, I did it. To say that you went into a country with no coach, with machine guns, and got in a cage, no hungover, yes. Now,
this is like a Kevin James movie.
Just think if I was, you're right. What's it called? Here Comes the Boom.
Yeah.
Right. Just think if I was sober that day, how bad I would have whooped his ass.
Is he lucky?
Yeah, he is lucky. But no, it went south at that point. I was tired.
Okay, but there's also honor. There's also, and dude, Igor is headbutting him up. Igor, like on the side of his head, his orbital bone on the same side that Nick is headbutting and keying on, for sure is broken. And he's using that orbital bone, that broken orbital bone, to up headbutt Nick. As strange as that might sound, that's what was going on. Like the most damaged part of his head that looks like a pumpkin, he's hitting Nick with.
Mike, that is slightly intimidating.
Yeah. You think?
Yes. I'm like, okay, this guy's crazy as fuck. I'm not going to win. I'm going to kill him before he taps.
and let's talk about it. He's getting stronger as the time goes on. He keeps getting stronger.
He does. And I'm getting weaker.
And there's no water breaks. There's no in-between rounds. I mean, it's
30 minutes. And what I found out was the last 5 minutes, you had mentioned this, you said don't ruin it, but the last 5 minutes is stand-up only. And I'm not going to go stand up against a K1 kickboxer when I'm a wrestler. So I basically tapped because I didn't want to get embarrassed and be punted in the head. And
you were done. Yeah, you were done. You were done. But I mean, Nick, like you sit here and say,
no, that's a setup, man.
You were on the verge of death. It looked like, because I mean, you were sweating, you were depleted. You know, I mean, it was. I mean, you were spent.
Now, you know, this is where we say Nick is fighting the mob too, because let's put this together here. 30 minutes against Igor Vovchanchin, and in case he hasn't gotten a job done in the first 25 minutes, you're only going to kickbox for the last 5 minutes. That's the rules.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
So what we're saying is this: Nick goes 2-1 against Igor Vovchanchin in their first bout, and takes the second prize money. Can we agree on that?
Yeah. Say it again.
You tapped him twice, actually. So you went 2-1 against him.
Now, what I'm trying to do, Miguel, and I don't know how this works, but I do want to go to the 3 or 4 minute mark on our first fight and somehow put it up there, and you tell me if he tapped or not.
Okay.
This is what we're gonna do. Nick. Miguel is very well written. Out of us three, Miguel writes the most. Miguel's gonna file an appeal. Okay. I mean, granted, it's 25 years later.
I want that first prize money.
Okay, so Frederico Lapenda is now in charge of the International Brazilian Tourism Board, and he definitely would not want to get his name attached to some felonious stuff. I have no doubt Miguel can get this overturned.
Okay.
Now, but hold on. So to be honest, so now here, you get the fines, you get paid. Now you spend 3 days. I was going to ask you, they didn't take you back to the airport from the arena. That would have been
amazing.
No hotel.
That would have been amazing. Yeah, well, we had to save money on a hotel. We just flew them in from the United States and flew them right back out. We saved $50.
Spent $5,000. Yeah.
I gotta be honest. I've done that. We did a show in Russia. I did that to one of my judges.
You talking about Carlos Diaz?
Yeah, we just took him to the hotel from the venue back to the airport, dude. So
wow.
Was he 26 hours on an airplane? Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So now you get back. Talking about, is Coleman at the airport at least? Coleman wants.
Well, no, wait. Yeah, how about this? What's the afterword like? What does Frederico Lapenda say? You know you got hosed. They know they hosed you. Did anybody say anything?
No, Frederico was saying, "Why'd you tap?" It's embarrassing how I tapped. I mean, I'm the only person in Top Guard to tap from headbutts from the bottom. I believe. To this day.
Wow, you took your place in history.
Yes.
Yeah, but it ain't that. You said it all, man. You were thinking through it. Why also kick?
I'm not
5 more minutes.
I didn't tap because the headbutts hurt. I tapped because I wasn't going to go get embarrassed for 5 minutes on my feet. Is why I tapped.
It was over. The fight was over. I mean, it's
now. So Lapenda tries to justify it and stuff. You wind up fighting for him again. So yeah. I mean, it could have been all bad, right? I mean, at the end of the day, too, I was thinking about it. For the time, the guy really was a pioneer, and he'd been around so many fights and stuff. He really was probably a good person to hang on to for advice and stuff at that circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, after the Israel. I had a fight with Elias Rodrigues, whose name was in.
Oh, okay. So if I may interject real quick, I'm on Tapology right now. Your Elias Rodrigues bout is listed as January 1st, 1997. So when I was announcing that first, it's wrong on the fight database. It's not my notes. My notes are correct. So Elias Rodrigues is your next fight after the tournament.
Yes.
Okay, and when did that take place?
Yeah, I believe it was January of '98, January 1st, '98.
So you think it was January 1st? They just messed up on the year. Okay,
you're right.
So you fought New Year's in Brazil. That's another kind of fun location, but you're not making a ton of money.
No, that one was for $5,000.
Okay,
that's good.
Did Coleman go with you?
Coleman went for me with that one. Yes. That was fun. Coleman was there, but he scares the hell out of you. That's the Chris, I was telling you, that's the time I fought in ring, and I shot a double leg right off the bat, and that's my go-to move. I don't want to box. By the way, Chris, I was watching you fight. 1 second. Lamas and Drew Lipton. I don't know why you do that at 46 years old now. You're crazy.
Drew Lipton almost had him. Drew Lipton, he was in Chris's head the whole time.
No, if Drew had 30 more seconds, he would have knocked him out. I promise you that.
He won the whole fight until he lost.
Yeah.
So Chris, you're crazy.
I got problems on it.
But I don't know where I was going with
So
that.
Elias Rodrigues.
Okay.
How was your training flight? Was that different than the tournament? Did you at least were you able to acclimate in Brazil?
Yeah, the cool thing about that one is they flew me in a week before. They flew Coleman in 4 days before. We'd go to different malls and concerts. And the funny thing is, we went to a concert and it was this blonde girl who was a Brazilian singer, and they're like, you want to go to this concert? I'm like, not really. I'm tired. I just want to go to bed. And we ended up having to go, and they're like,
okay, great. I'll see you in 5 minutes. We're going to the concert.
Well, they're like, do you want to go backstage and meet her? And I'm like, no, I just want to go to bed. Here it was Shakira.
That's what I was about to say, Shakira.
Yeah.
No,
and in hindsight, talking to my daughters and dancing to Shakira, I probably should have went backstage and visited her. But
she's more
better.
famous. She's more famous than Coleman.
Yeah, I would agree.
Not as good looking though. Not as good looking as Mark. So go ahead.
Mark.
Hey, everyone's got a type. Slow down.
True.
But now but seriously now, where in Brazil was this fight? Because it lists Brazil. What city? Were you in Rio or Sao Paulo or?
It was called Recife.
Recife. Okay. All right.
In Portuguese, it'd be Recife.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's up by the equator.
Yep.
The northeast part of Brazil.
Yep. Coleman and.
But that was sort of an easy fight.
Wait. So your parents at this time, your parents are high school teachers at this point, correct?
Yes, sir.
What is their
homework?
What is their reaction to these activities of yours?
Like I said, my mom's like, Nikki, you are a different bird, and you fly the way you want to, but I don't know. I am the black sheep of the family. My goal is to never be normal. I don't think normal people are ever remembered. I want to be abnormal. And I don't know. Just my mom's like, oh, Nikki, that's the way God made him. And
can you imagine this beautiful woman going to school, and all the teachers, and she's very proper and educated. And then at lunch, she's telling, my boy's flying to Brazil to fight a bare knuckle, no holds barred fight.
Hey, especially back then, you got to understand, when I first started training in the 98, right when you were fighting, people looked at you different when they found out what you did. They were like, yeah, like you just said, you're going to eat babies for breakfast or something. That's how they look. Yeah, so
it's just my thing.
Yeah. I like babies. What do you do?
Yeah. No, but in Brazil, now you're in Recife, so you probably fly to Sao Paulo or Rio and then take another plane and you're on the beach. But there, they treat the fighters different. You have a lot of fun. Like you said, they take you to concerts in the malls. And, I know Mark was checking out chicks at the mall probably and da-da-da-da-da. So, yeah, it's a single fight. Are you thinking, hey, I can do this at this point?
Now, you were cutting out for a second, but repeat the last question.
I was just saying, it's a single fight. You win. Are you thinking, now you're with Mark, a lot of confidence. Do you think, hey, I can do this fighting thing at this point? Are you settling in?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. At this point, I think Frederico was saying, let's get you a belt. Let's get you, the hero of the northeast part of Brazil. The guy's name was Elias Rodrigues, but he went by De Mundo Negro. And if you translate that, De Mundo is demon black. So he was the black devil. He was like a pretty ripped black guy. And he was like, I don't know. In Brazil, there's I want to say mythology, but he was a big person in the northeast part of Brazil. But I don't know. I had no fear of him. And
at weigh-ins,
Kevin Coleman in my corner was awesome. And I knew it was just
at weigh-ins, what was the vibe like?
Do weigh-ins.
Oh my God. No stare down, no pictures, nothing.
But we did a stare down, and I'm not good at stare downs because I'm a nice guy, and maybe I'll give you but I'm not gonna give you I'm gonna kill you look. I'm like, let's party, and then eventually, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, but my thing is, I'm not the stare down champion. I'll look at you and think, all I got to do is make you uncomfortable enough to tap, and then we'll be friends afterwards. I have no hate or remorse or vengeance against anybody.
Yeah, that's weird. You might be the only guy ever out of Hammer House that falls into that category.
Yeah. You're the black sheep of Hammer House for sure.
For sure.
You're the Hammer House.
Like, what's wrong with him? He doesn't hate
We've already
people.
decided
Mark
he's the Hammer
Kerr.
House intellectual.
Mark Kerr.
So were you the main event? Were you guys the main event of this fight or what?
Yes, the one in with the Black Devil. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So he's really fought 2 events, and he's been the main event both times.
Pretty good.
He's never not taken a plane for a fight. Like, he's never fought at home, which is really bizarre.
Never fought in the United States to this day.
How'd the fight go? How'd the fight go exactly?
With the Black Devil.
Black Devil, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he's breaking up.
We got in the cage. This was a ring, Mike, and he was ripped, and he was ready to. He knew what was coming. I shot a double leg, but we ran out of the cage through the ropes, and I felt like, oh shit, that was my tell.
Again.
He knows what's going to happen. So they brought us back in, and Miguel, if you're going to show, Igor tapping, show me throwing Black Devil through the ropes too, just to back the story.
Just to let his wife know what's up. Let his old lady know. Yeah.
So the second one wasn't as impressive. I didn't really go as hard, but I got him down, and it was sort of awesome because the bottom rope of the ring had a net. So I just pushed his head under the net. I pulled the rope over it and put it under his chin so he couldn't do anything. I just punched him, and the ref didn't say anything. Eventually,
it's probably the first time you ever saw it. That's a good move.
That's a veteran Hammer House move right there.
Well,
you learned a lot from Igor Vovchanchin. That's good.
That's right.
Well, that net under the ring, that's the Brazilian would have done that to you, so that's a
guarantee.
move, man.
Guarantee.
Yep. So, and the refs, they don't give a shit down there. So
no, they didn't. I mean, the crowd sort of liked it. It was a unique, innovative thing to do, and
if you could have just got that rope all the way around and did like a necktie, that would have been great.
Like a lapel choke. Yeah,
awesome. Choked him with the ring rope.
There's that intellectual part again. Thinking.
Yeah. I was tired though. That was the first time I punched myself out though.
How long did it last?
3 or 4 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it maybe because you weren't letting him wiggle like you did in the first tournament, and you kind of went all in?
No, I went all in because I was thinking. My plan was I'm just gonna keep barraging him with these, and the ref's gonna pull me off, but he didn't. He let the guy keep going, and honestly, I was missing. I got tired as hell, and thank God his corner threw in the towel because I was tired as hell, to be honest.
Was he cut and leaking pretty bad? Was he bleeding all over the place?
Nope. And wow. Not being racial or anything here, but I know black people have thicker skin than white people. But I hit him so many times on eyebrow and stuff, and he swelled up, but he sure as hell didn't cut, which Igor did cut rather easily. But man, he lumped up, but there was no blood at all. Man. So that was scary for me.
Now, what was he like? Because those guys, I've met a couple of those old school Brazilian guys. There was another guy called Sombra de Noite, the Shadow of the Night, another skinny North Brazilian guy and stuff like that. Those guys are not like, hey, shake hands afterwards, were they?
The Mundo Negro or Elias Rodrigues, he was cool. But no, there's one guy, and now I'm going to our third fight with Patrick Smith and Paul Varlens and Igor, like this big fight.
Well, that's the next tournament, though. How were they at that event? Were they nice to you, or was it, very persona non grata in regards to the attitude after the event?
Which one?
Elias Rodrigues.
The second one.
He was respectful. Unfortunately, we had a beer or two outside, but I don't know what he was saying because he's speaking Portuguese. But
kind of nod your head.
I'm sure it's all compliments.
It's
true. I honestly think he was afraid of me. So he didn't. He wasn't a douchebag. If that makes sense.
Okay, so
makes absolute
where
sense.
was that third one at? Where was that third tournament you were just talking about? Paul Varlens. Was that in Brazil as well?
Let me set it up. Would you allow me to set it up?
Set it up, baby. He'll knock it down.
February 3rd, 1998, World Vale Tudo Championships 5, billed as Brazil versus the world.
Ooh.
Now,
damn, Mike, you are so good with your.
This is amazing. This is what's amazing. All right, so Brazil versus the world in Brazil. Chris, Miguel, we've been around promotions game, just a little bit. We've been around a few corners. You pack the seats with your local ticket sellers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, your big popular guys supply the crowd. You bring in people from out of town in order to kind of get the event rolling, but you try to take care of your hometown guys. You got to give them a win. All right. So this is 1 30-minute round, 5 minutes overtime, just like the other one. There's 4 Brazilian fighters in this tournament. Their career records after retirement, after the course of their career, was 10 wins and 25 losses. It is, one of the guys was 1-12. Like, it's literally the job squad of Brazil coming in, representing that country. This is like Frederico Lapenda. I've got my notes. One day, hopefully we interview him. There's something that took place that completely screwed the local talent. They just got tired of it and they left. Something happened there and he had to rely on a whole bunch of bodies to fill their spot. 100% there is something there, because there's no way you get like these horrible Brazilians to fill these spots.
So Mike, let me comment on that real quick.
Please.
So, okay. The toughest guy was Paul Harris. The ankle lock guy that fought Igor the first round.
Yeah, the Chinese boxing guy, Tudo.
Yeah, but
yeah.
Also, the 4 people they brought in was Paul the Polar Varlens, Patrick Smith, Igor Vovchanchin, and myself. A lot of the Brazilians
studs.
Like, listen, that's not really a good tournament to enter. Even if you're a good Brazilian.
Yeah, they want to protect their guys. I get it.
Yeah, I mean.
You know what? You got a point there. Okay. That's a very good counterpoint.
I mean, Varlens is a UFC, guy.
He's a menace. Varlens is just an absolute menace at this point. Yeah, he's just a giant guy that's just.
Patrick Smith is crazy as hell. Igor Vovchancyn at the time is slaying a lot of the crazy guys. And myself, I mean, I'm not at their level, but
they know who you were.
I'm no, walkthrough. So why would any Brazilian just want to come to this tournament in Recife, Brazil?
Well, here I can respond to that.
Okay.
What was the pay? What was the price for that to win it?
I think 10,000 to win, 5,000 to make the finals. And
That's a year of pay at that point for a local guy.
That's what they were paying the Americans. Maybe they weren't paying the Brazilians that
That's
much.
true.
You know, they're different.
Right. You're right.
They do it different, man. You know.
You're probably right, Chris. I mean, it's kind of like.
And I guarantee those Brazilians they paid didn't get as much as these guys did.
Absolutely. I have no doubt. We got to get Frederico Lapenda and we got to pin him down. He's got a huge government position over there.
I would like to
have that ever happening.
Interview and hang out with Frederico again.
All right, Nick, who did you have first round then?
Lucia Carvalho.
Gosh darn it, Mike. Nice job.
MMA detective, Mike Davis.
So basically, Coleman's like, now they stack the deck against you. This guy's amazing. He's got an octagon tattooed on his stomach. He really scared the hell out of me. I'm thinking that this guy's awesome, but yeah, Coleman has
got an octagon tattooed on his stomach. He's legit.
Coleman scares you. I'd rather have Frederico as my quarterman. I'm like, Jesus, I'm so nervous now that you told me that. But I don't know. He was rather easy. Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He was 50 pounds lighter than me. And I was able to just get him down and ground and pound him.
So 2 minutes, 40 seconds, you stop him.
Approximately.
Yeah.
239.
239. Okay. All right. So check, Chris, you guys got to see this. Like, I would like Miguel to kind of like put a video on and then like us on the bottom and just kind of comment what's happening on the fight. This fight that I'm about to say would be the fight that I'd want to do first. And it's Igor Vovchanchin versus Tulio Paul Harris. Okay. Think, Paul Harris, famous leg lock guy, maybe, same family, who knows? Tulio attempted like a few takedowns, never got punched a single time, kept circling out, and then just said, that's it, I quit. Never got punched.
Are you kidding?
No, in a 5 minute. It took like 5 minutes. Like Frederico Lapenda, there's no way he paid this guy. Like there's no way that guy left there with any money, and he's lucky to get his ass whooped backstage.
Wow, wow.
Didn't get a single punch, just pointed at his foot. Yeah, I'm done. I gotta go.
Mike, I'll give you a little trivia. I'm sorry, Nick, but if you want Tulio on the show, I can do it for you because I actually know him pretty well.
What's his record?
It's poor. But
okay, it's like 1-12. What were you talking about? Is one win?
Yeah, he was a UFC. He actually was an alternate at the UFC Brazil and fought on the UFC Brazil show. And then moved to Spain. And so he did have to get out of Brazil eventually.
Like witness protection program, moved to Spain. There's.
But are you guys having that feeling at this show? Do you feel like what is Lapenda telling you about the Brazilians? Is it stacked for you guys? Like, are you feeling like, does that make you feel good, or like, what's the show like? Or did you eventually knew you were going to get Igor anyway?
To me, I thought I was going to get Igor because I don't know. I had confidence and I felt like I could beat Paul. I could beat any Brazilian. I could beat Patrick. Like, I don't know. I thought it was inevitable that we'd meet in the finals.
Okay. And on a side note, Pat Smith wins his opening bout and hurts his hand, never comes back into the tournament, but they don't have alternate fights lined up. So they just put Elias Rodrigues, your former opponent, into the quarterfinals against Igor.
Yeah.
So they had a guy that never fought, just kind of, I think they scrambled in the background. Like, this is one of the events anybody that fought on this card, like, I got to talk to him, So how was the crowd? Was it packed or was it empty?
So it was basically, it was at a bar, like, let's say a sports bar with 2 levels. It was not like an arena. It was a weird place. The funny thing is Paul Varlens, I lost my mouthpiece in the first round, and I needed one for the second round. And I asked Paul for one. He gave me one. And at this sports bar, I'm in their kitchen trying to boil a mouthpiece to make it fit. So it wasn't really an event or an agenda. It was a sports bar. It was crazy.
I don't know how Frederico did this. Like if you look at like Dana White, Jamie Levine, like those are two prominent promoters of that time. Frederico Lapenda belongs in that category as well. Like this guy was promoting fights internationally and bringing Frederico Lapenda made his mark, man. I respect
Marco
what he's done.
And Oleg, like he's the guy behind Marco and Oleg. Like, yeah, he's good.
That rematch, yeah.
Okay.
The rematch. I think I put him in the Peretti category.
You put Frederico Lapenda? I think I could have put him. Well, I get what you're saying, but I think he's a little level above Peretti. I mean, he's promoting events in Tel Aviv. It's crazy. Okay, so here, let's go. Paul Varlens. Going into that fight with Varlens, because you got through your first bout, what were you obviously must have known who he was. So what were your thoughts of him?
Well, I remember watching UFC with Coleman, like before Coleman even fought, and Paul Varlens was on the TV, and I don't know, I looked up to him like that's a big guy. But I watched Kerr beat him earlier in a Brazil tournament, and I wasn't nervous about him. So I just thought it was going to be easy, get a takedown, get on top and ground and pound. I wasn't worried about that one.
Nice.
And Paul kind of played along to talk about the fight, because Paul, what he bought was, and you got to like when he was in UFC, he came in big, but you got to kind of in shape. Like he started to trim down.
He looked good. He looked good for that fight.
Yeah.
And he always bought the intensity. So talk a little bit about Paul. May he rest in peace.
So the cool thing about Paul is Mark said something like, "Listen, you've lost 80 pounds. Go out there without your shirt on, show off what you've done." And I don't know, Paul was close to Coleman and I. So he did go out. I think that's the only time he fought without a shirt on, but hell, he lost 80 pounds. He should have been proud of himself. The weird thing is when I was fighting him, I was using his mouthpiece. Now, the weird thing is this, and let me just go a couple minutes on this. But so I fought my first fight. I had a mouthpiece. I put it down. Somebody stole it. I'm getting ready to fight Paul in the semifinals. And he's like getting amped up to fight me. I'm like, "Paul, listen, I hate to bother you, but do you have a mouthpiece I can borrow?" He's like, "Jesus Christ, another nutter. Here you go." And he handed me a mouthpiece.
So were you guys warming up in the same area?
Yes.
That's a really small bar. That's a really small bar.
Sports bar that I was talking about. Yeah.
Wow.
It was a sports bar. So he gives it to me. I end up beating him, and by the grace of God, I lose the mouthpiece he let me borrow. So after I beat him in the semifinals, he's getting stitches, and I'm like, "Paul, hey, good fight. You're really gonna hate me, but can I borrow your mouthpiece again?"
What's going on with you, Nick? What's happening, dude? Is this Coleman? Who's doing this?
Coleman's hiding him from him.
Somebody did. And he's like, "Jesus Christ."
Do you think it was somebody trying to undermine the event?
I think so. But the one he gave me that he had like, it looks like
drool on it.
There was drool. It looked like he chewed on it for like days. There was gum in it. But I put it in to show the referee that I do indeed have a mouthpiece, and I showed it to him and got knocked out 9 seconds later. But anyways, Paul's a good guy. He let me have 2 mouthpieces.
That's cool. That's amazing.
Yeah, we got his last interview actually, and we did a real deep dive with him, and it's something that all of us are proud of.
When was that?
We did Paul's last interview before he passed.
Oh, I'd like to see that, please.
Yeah, we did a deep dive too. Like we really went like super Star Warsy nerdy with them. We're up. I mean, that was a really, really solid interview. All right, so Vovchanchin, so do you think he knew? Did you think he timed your setup? Do you think he understood what you were going to do? Like, essentially, what happened to what's his name? What Jorge Masvidal did to Ben Askren is what took place to Nick Nutter.
Yes. Well played.
Yeah, it was like a 7-second flying knee.
Yeah, well played.
Oh, shit.
I thought, well, if you looked at the first fight in Israel versus this one, Igor came in heavy to this one. He was a little chubby, and I was a lot leaner than our first fight. I thought it was going to be easy. I honestly feinted a jab, and he did put his hands up. So to me, as a wrestler, I'm thinking, if you put your hands up, you're not going to hit me with the knee. I'm going to jab. I was looking for a reaction, and he didn't throw a knee. So I jabbed once. He showed me what he did. He blocked it. So I jabbed again, and thinking he would do the same thing, I shot. And I woke up a minute or 2 later. Didn't work out so well.
Yeah, I mean, did you say, did I win?
Oh.
What happened?
I didn't know what.
Must have won, right?
I woke up with something in my nose, and then the people were speaking in Portuguese. I don't know what they're saying, but they're like
quoting your wife. That's what they were doing.
Yeah, like you're a pussy, Nick.
He was right. She was right.
Amy, go to bed. No, then they said say the months backwards. And I ask you, Mike, can you say the months backwards?
And I barely graduated high school. I went to an all-boys school. I would say you bet the under.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking, Jesus. Okay. I don't know, December, November. Like I got to November. I'm like, fuck, I don't know it. And I'm thinking I must be fucked up. Like, so I got really scared when they woke me up, but it is what it is. I'm still here today, but that's a weird question to ask. Can you say the months backwards?
Man, it's funny too, because in a way too, Igor did the most respectful thing he could do to you. You know what I mean? It's like he didn't want 24 more minutes of you either. No. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did you have that feeling?
No, I'm grateful that he just ended it quickly, because I didn't get hurt that bad, and we had fun the next 3 or 4 days.
Okay, so let's. Can I ask you? Okay, we're. I mean, obviously, we may or may not be done with this fight career. So you spent a lot of time with Mark Coleman, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Wes told me, hey, go pick up Mark, go drive him around with you. I was doing some sales in Ohio, and we were in Fremont, Ohio, and he made me go to like this, and that's like it's like a ground where they have like carnivals every year and stuff like that. And he told me about a fist fight he got into there. Look at that smile. What do you know about Mike Overmyer?
That's funny that you know Overmyer.
How do you not know Overmyer? It's the greatest story I have ever heard in my entire life. Like at one point, let me set this up properly. At one point, anyone that could beat Mark Coleman up in his prime, he knew their name and where they were from. Like, and I'm talking the entire world. Like the entire world, if you could beat a guy up, he knew exactly who you were. And if he didn't know your name, you couldn't beat him up. Like that's how crazy it was. He's haunted by a fight that took place at a fairgrounds at the age of 22. Please tell us about Mike Overmyer and your opinion of this story.
Okay, I don't know if Mark told me this in confidence, but I'm going to tell you what I know. Okay, so Mark is probably now an All-American wrestler at Miami University, Miami, Ohio, or Ohio State. He goes back to his hometown, maybe had a couple beers in him, and he was maybe getting a little rowdy at the beer tent. And the bouncer there was Mike Overmyer. And he's telling him, like, Mark, you got to settle down. You got to leave. And Mark, maybe not, decided, no, I don't have to. So they maybe faced off. And Coleman said that at the tent, there was a rope that came down with like a stake in it. And Overmyer pushed him over there and got the best of him for a good.
Used a foreign object.
Yes, used a foreign object, like
pro wrestling tactic.
Pro wrestling. But, oh God, Coleman's going to kill me if he really sees
Sims
it.
has already spilled his guts, dude. Sims tells on all you guys. I'm not even going to lie. Okay. Sims tells on everybody.
So
because
Overmyer got
because I love him.
He threw him down and got on top and walloped him a little bit. Coleman says that in his defense is because he was a little maybe tipsy and that rope shouldn't have been there. But I do not want to fight Mike Overmyer. I promise you that.
Okay, now, do you think Mike Overmyer put the dress piping on the ground for Kevin Randleman before he fought Pedro Izzo and tripped and knocked himself out and had the main event canceled? Was Overmyer part of that as well?
It sounds like a good conspiracy theory.
Okay. So we're gonna go with yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I can't comment on
Overmyer
that.
hated Hammer House. He did everything he could to foil their plans.
Now the funny thing is, I think they're okay today. Him and Overmyer.
How much do you think that fight influenced Mark, like as a fighter, like on the next level? Because it happened obviously before he set foot in the UFC.
I'm sure it scared him a lot. Thinking that the town carny could whoop your ass. Now I'm going against the best guys in the world. That'd probably be scary.
How often did you hear that story?
I've heard it 3 times, and at least 3. But
now, does he always say, "Doesn't bother me though"? He says that throughout the entire telling of the story.
He does, and he says that we're friends today. Damn it! You got to cut all this stuff out. By the way,
I got a question for you there because Mike went the conspiracy theory route to bring up Kevin Randleman's name, make Kevin rest in peace. But I'm sure I'll share one Kevin Randleman story with you. He came to our show in Indiana, and it was Coleman and Randleman. And my partner, Jeff, took him to the airport to leave. And when they were leaving, he looked at Kevin and said, I think this is the first time you visited that you didn't get arrested. And Kevin said, I think you're right. So share with us a Kevin Randleman story.
Oh, gosh. Let me think of a good one that I could say online.
You can say anything online. That's the beauty.
Yeah,
of it.
I mean, Randleman, God rest his soul. I don't think he'd mind. I think the guy was a Viking.
You know what was cool about Randleman, honestly, is he was good to everybody. So on one story I remember is in college on my dorm floor, he was 2 years ahead of me. There was a guy down the hall that was a little probably handicapped and mental, but this Randleman went up to him and went out of his way to make him feel special and gave him his Ohio State wrestling shirt and everything, which hell, he didn't have to do that at all. But yeah. Randleman was good with taking care of the people that couldn't take care of themselves.
That's awesome.
I'm not saying that to be cheesy or corny, but no, Randleman took care of the little guys and made them feel special. And
That's cool.
Made them feel that that, you know what, I got Kevin Randleman on my back, so nobody's against me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a true story. He gave him his shirt off his back, and at the end of the year, they collected the jerseys, and Randleman couldn't give it back, so he had to pay for it. So, but and I really wanted that jersey that he gave the handicap guy.
Randleman was just trying to walk around with the shirt off, I think.
Yeah.
That being said, 2 weeks later, I beat up the handicap guy and got a shirt.
It's on my wall.
Nice.
Okay.
So that, Nick, that makes me think, okay, after that, that's kind of your last fight. What made you say, man, I mean, you were kind of a hot commodity and stop your game.
He was one fight away from the UFC. All he needed to do was beat one big name and you were in.
What made you decide to be like, this isn't for me anymore, man?
Okay, so so even before I was gonna fight Igor, there was talks that I was gonna fight Maurice Smith in the UFC. And then I got knocked out. So I had a 90-day protocol. I had this doctor from Huntington, West Virginia call me and say, hey, will you coach my son in wrestling? I went down for a 2-day period. He paid me money. And then he ended up saying, hey, will you just come down and train my son? He gave me a good number that was nobody could blink at. And I sort of, I got out of the sport because I got fat and lazy, being a personal coach. So that's the God's honest truth, but I do have regrets about that.
You mentioned that you had a couple training camps with Mark Kerr. Could you give us a little insight onto him? Were you with him when he was kind of going off the rails, or were you with Mark when he was just tight and just really focused?
Go ahead. Chris,
No.
you were going to say something? Okay.
No, go ahead.
I've seen both sides of Kerr. I knew him before we even met, for fighting. I knew him after, but no, that the documentary, The Smashing Machine, is unfortunately pretty damn true.
Wow.
Sad story. Like, whoever did that documentary was 100% legit. And, Kerr, he is a cerebral thinker.
He's a smart guy.
He is. But you can't outthink addiction. And I don't know, that video really shows it. The way he speaks and his demeanor and his awareness of his words, you can't outthink addiction. And he tried to. And I don't know, I look forward to if there really is another movie coming out with The Rock, but if they could really dive into that. Unfortunately, everything in The Smashing Machine, to my knowledge, is 100% accurate.
Okay, so why do you think Mark Kerr allowed them such unfettered access to his life?
Ooh, good question.
He really wasn't making any money doing it, so why was he giving up the goods on video?
Okay, now I've never thought about this before, and I'm shooting from the hip, but when you're in trouble and you're in a bad spot that you want to share with somebody that you're in a bad spot, and maybe him sharing
he was like, reach out for help, cry for help.
Maybe that was the only audience he could get at the time. Maybe. Mike, I've really never thought of that, but why would you do that?
It's forever. It's forever.
I know, but he's probably in a position where he's going to lose it forever. So I'll show it to anybody. I'm going to show you all my warts, and this is what it is, but this is what it is. That's my guess. I'm just speculating.
How were his hangers on? The guys that were hanging on him, what were they like?
Like the guys from Syracuse and stuff.
Yeah.
I never really met them. I met his girl, Coleman. I never got to meet the guys from Syracuse.
Yeah, he surrounded himself with some real just kind of people that enabled him.
I would agree. And the only reason why I think anybody would do that is because they're out there, the last grip of the rope. And
I could see that.
Man,
Makes sense.
let me do this dramatically because I don't want to go down this way. That's my only guess.
Now, let me ask you a little bit more down the Kerr rabbit hole here. Coleman had been in bar fights. Randleman had been in, fights. You're a different kind of wrestler. You had not been in fights. Now, I put Kerr more in your category. Is that a fair assessment?
I would say, yeah. Yeah.
Now, because of mindset, like he's like they're technical, like Kevin Jackson, probably not a lot of bar fights either. You know what I mean? You could tell the gritty wrestler guys, that adapted well to it. And then some guys would start like yourself. Talk about was Kerr versus Coleman? That's our question.
Come on, let's have it.
At their peak.
Okay, so my opinion is this: Coleman is king.
Everybody says that, and do you know who else says it?
Is it Coleman?
Mark Coleman
says
it.
I'm in his head.
Telling you that this
That's
guy,
what he says, Chris. Yeah.
I'm in his head.
The one guy who's a national champion at Ohio State, Mitch Clark, 177 pounder, he said, if I can make, and I'm sorry, my voice is going in and out, but he said, my goal, if I make Mark Coleman grimace, that's a good win. And this grimace, like put it in second gear to stop something. Coleman smashed Randleman every day. He smashed Rex Holman every day. He smashed myself every day. He smashed Mitch Clark every day.
What about Wade Shipman?
I know Scott Shipman.
Or Scott Shipman. Did he smash Scott as well?
Oh God, yes. From West Liberty Salem, yes.
Was Mark uncoachable?
Yeah, but yes, he's uncoachable but here's the thing. How are you going to coach a national champion to do better? Like if you're even UFC champion, I'm like, Mark, you should probably learn how to counter an armbar. You should probably learn the guillotine choke, or you should probably learn the oh God.
Yeah, the guard,
Yeah, no, I don't need to. I'm just gonna smash my way through it. And then he does it. So who am I to tell you that you need to learn?
Yeah, you're winning wrong.
How about in the wrestling rooms? Was he uncoachable like in college as well? I mean, obviously, there's a big age gap between the two of you.
No, here was the frustrating thing is he would come into the weight room or the wrestling room. He would grab $100 bill and put it up on the wall. He's like, Nutter, you got 60 minutes. You're on the bottom. If you get away, you get that $100 bill.
No way.
I would go an hour and he would fuck with me and let me get away and just grab the tip of my shoe, and I'm almost kicking away and he pull me back. No, it's not funny. It's embarrassing. But gosh darn it, Chris. I thought I was away I thought I had $100 20 times in my life, but he would fuck with me and just pull my two toes back and just smash me. He was unbelievably dominant at practice. I promise you that.
Wow. Okay, so your former teammate, Eric Smith,
yep.
He fought in one of those Brazilian tournaments as well.
Yeah.
Give us background on him.
So
he's a fighter that the most nerdy fan doesn't know about. But like, if you look at his record, it's incredibly fascinating. And he's only fought twice.
Yes. He had the worst draw ever. So he's from a town near Dayton, Ohio, in the rougher part called Wayne Huber Heights. It's like, let's say, the rough part of Dayton. He came to Ohio State. He was a 2 or 3 time All-American. His very first fight was Jose
Pele Landis
Jones.
But here's the thing at Pele, it's not, and he beats him. But the thing is Pele, this isn't like Pele's first, second, third fight. Pele's 7-1, and he's coming off a loss against Joe Hill. So Pele is like the super stud, loses to Joe Hill de Oliveira, and then this is his like rebound. This is his bounce back fight. And he runs into an 0-0 Eric Smith, and Eric Smith finished him.
Yeah,
Wow.
keep in mind, Pele was basically an instructor or an older generation for Vanderlei Silva, and he also owns a win over Chuck Liddell.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Eric Smith finishes him, and you know, Nick, why don't you tell everybody who his second round draw was in this tournament?
Well, then he had Dan Henderson, and
he never fights again.
No, never fights again. But
That sucks.
if you watch the fight, he throws a left hand and rocks Henderson.
He rocked Henderson with the left hand.
Yes, he rocked him with a left hook, shot it on double leg, picked him up, and Henderson put a standing guillotine in, and
Choked him out.
Eric was too proud to go down, but he let him choke him out from a standing guillotine.
Henderson not only got wobbled, but like if he would have beat Dan and then never fought again, it would echo as the greatest of all time. That no one, no one got the face really. But yeah, Eric Smith, why did he quit fighting?
That's a good question. I could probably text him. He would probably have regrets. But to beat Jose Pele Lady Jones, who beat Militech, like, he's I don't know. Jose is a god, and then honestly, rocking Henderson. I don't know why he quit. It was probably a bad move, just like me quitting was a bad move. I promise.
Do you think it's mindset with a lot of you said Coleman was a guy who's elite. There were a few guys that are Coleman's peers, like for example, Royce Alger also didn't do it a lot. What did you think of that impression of a couple of the top guys? Kevin Jackson is another guy, Olympic gold medalist, that once they got into submissions and stuff like that, it became dangerous and they also stopped doing it. Did you notice that? What did that feel like? And then Coleman just keeps charging on.
So I think those are two good examples you gave. Royce Alger, awesome wrestler. I think Coleman was just so big and strong and never really had. Now, obviously, Coleman was humbled by Fedor and Nogueira with an armbar, but he never really felt an armbar from a guy who is big and strong enough to put him in an armbar. Yeah. And who's the guy that it was a Japanese guy who knocked out Royce Alger with an armbar.
Enson Inoue.
Enson Inoue. I mean, as he was falling, he's tapping. I just think Coleman never experienced a real high-level jiu-jitsu guy that was as big and strong as him. So he just took for granted that these arm bars and stuff like really work. But until you meet Nogueira or Fedor, somebody like that, yes, Coleman will tell you now that shit works. But if you're 135 pounds trying to do it, Coleman's just going to do a curl and like get that shit out of here. But it does matter. That shit works.
Now,
That's my 2 cents on it. I could be wrong.
No,
I promise you that's probably what he was thinking.
In the case of Alger, do you really think at that point, with a little bit of wrestling arrogance and ignorance, did he go into that fight never seeing an armbar?
Yes. Yeah. It was wrestling arrogance, because Coleman spoiled him. If you watched Coleman's fights earlier, okay, I take him down, I put him in the ground, I drag him to the cage, I punch him, I headbutt him, and it's over.
Fight's over.
You collect your check and you go home. Yeah. Yes. Get your hand raised, get your money, and you leave.
Yes, it's wrestling arrogance, but nobody saw the armbar coming. And ask Kevin Jackson, ask
Alan Freed.
But Frank Shamrock locked up that armbar. Ask all the wrestlers who got submitted by an armbar. Shit's real.
Yeah, Bolander got Jackson too.
Yeah.
Jerry Bolander. That was a fantastic fight.
And with Frank, it was a submission grappling match. Do you remember Alan Freed? Because I think Alan Freed
with Sato.
Yeah, Ruben Sato. He caught a flying armbar in 6 seconds.
Yes.
Miguel's favorite fighter.
Either. Sato in the interview afterwards, I heard it go pop, 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 pop. Yes. Alan Freed is one of the best wrestlers ever. But yes, ignorance to jiu-jitsu is a horrible thing, obviously. It's real and it hurts.
Yeah, it's a quick way just to get your show money. That's for sure.
Yeah. I would tap out way before then.
You're from Ohio, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, do you know Ryan Stout?
Ryan Stout. From where?
He was from Ohio. He's about 185 pounder that at times dabbled with Hammer House and did some submission fighting.
Did he wrestle at Michigan?
I think he wrestled.
Yeah, in Upper Arlington, near Columbus.
I'm not. You're gonna catch me not knowing much because he used to come to Indiana to our show. But what I was trying to get to is that there were some guys that didn't make the Hammer House that got cut, and Ryan is one of those guys. I remember Randleman telling me that guy's a pussy. Anybody else that didn't make it at Hammer House? You remember any stories from the Hammer House? People getting sweated out?
It's a good question. Not really. You guys painted a picture today that I'd never really saw before, but Coleman throws whoever's willing to have the balls and go into a situation. He'll throw him in that situation. So,
well, the word normal. Okay, my normal is much different than Miguel Irate's living in Costa Rica's normal, from a kid on the south side of Chicago that's 14 years old that's got to survive normal. Everybody's normal is different.
Yeah.
And then you look at Mark Coleman, what his normal was. And his normal was, tomorrow you're flying to Israel. You're getting a 8-man tournament with Igor Vovchanchin. I'm not going, but you are. And you're like, well, what, huh? He's got a way to convince people to do things that they would normally never do. And I think Eric Smith maybe fell into that category as well.
Here's another thing I would have to think is, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think Hammer House wasn't the Team Shamrock where you go and you have these open tryouts. I think it was kind of invitation only, wasn't it? I mean, hey, come to the gym. It wasn't wasn't it kind of like that, more just okay, you had to be invited. There wasn't people came and tried out and then you didn't make it.
No, you're right, Chris. It was if you want to come under my wing and do what we do, Wes Sims was not a wrestler at Ohio State. He's the only non-wrestler to make the Hammer House, but Wes Sims went under Coleman's wing and he got granted that privilege. But you're right. It was not like a tryout.
Okay. There was a guy, and I know this because it came out of Mark's mouth under the prodding of Sims. Mark wouldn't have told me this, but Sims made him tell me. Essentially, Hammer House used to be brick and mortar. Okay, there used to be an actual Hammer House gym. And whoever the money financer was, I guess he was like some sort of church guy or whatever, and he would teach jiu-jitsu class. Well, one day, the FBI shows up over at Hammer House Gym, and they start asking Mark specifically what he was doing there, what his job details was, what, and Mark's like, well, he teaches my kid program and, or keeps it, blah, 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 kind of keeps the lights on. And essentially what they told him was, this guy's in a witness protection program, and they alluded it was because of some sort of trafficking issues involving minors. And they freaked out, and they never saw this guy again. And Mark goes, fuck this. We're just going to go work out over at Ohio State. I'm done with this shit. Now, wow. Am I right or am I wrong?
What year is this?
Oh, fuck, dude. I'd have to call Sims. I'd have to call Wes.
Now,
this may have been after you. This may have been right after you, because you're before Wes. Because you and Wes were never in the same room with each other.
Now, what I'm going to say about this is, I don't know if you've watched, there was this crazy doctor at Ohio State, Dr. Richard Strauss, who, if you went in for a cauliflower ear and get it drained, or you got a broken finger, he's going to check your genitals. I don't know if that story ties into that, like, let's get out of here and let's start our own place. But I'm not familiar with your story.
I think there were some echoings of that in Mark's head, and he just said, forget this. We're not doing brick and mortar. It's invite only. We're working out at Ohio State or this other gym, and that's it.
Okay.
I'm gonna, when Chris and I sit down with Mark, I wonder if how much Richard Strauss played into, his thinking in regards to that.
Well, I'd like to be on that conversation. He was an odd feller, I promise you that.
Yeah. So I like that stuff. I to be honest with you, like, it's a shame that everybody went through it. Like, it's disgusting, and it's like shame on the people that allowed that. But and I think the people that are involved that actually talk about it, the amount of strength it takes to talk about that publicly, like, it should be talked about more, and there should be no shame for the victims to speak up about it.
No, Mike,
but it's not an easy topic.
No, it's not. And here's the problem is, so many people say you guys are gay and, like, you guys are pussies. Why don't you punch them in the face? It's such a weird thing, because I don't know. My mom was a teacher. My dad was a teacher. My mom quit teaching. I didn't have money, and the guy's like, even if I had a cauliflower ear, it's like, Nick, your groin has lymph nodes. I need to check it. And then he'd make me feel guilty for questioning him. So there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah. I mean, he was using his manipulation with his medical degree and stuff like that, for sure. All right. Now, beyond all that, and I'm not discrediting it. Like, it's like, I'm glad it came to the forefront. Jim Jordan, how was he as a coach?
Jim Jordan, as a coach, was tough as hell. Nobody ever took him down. Coleman would even tell you that. Go ahead.
Wow, no, that's impressive. Wow, Coleman.
Yeah.
No, Coleman would say the toughest guy he ever wrestled, even above Randleman, myself, and Rex Holman, was Jim Jordan, because Jim Jordan did turn him in like laces. Jim Jordan is the toughest guy that probably Coleman would admit to wrestling at Ohio State.
Really? How? Because, like, when you see him on the committees,
he's
like,
tough as fuck.
Dude, you're not getting anything by him. Whether you like him or you don't like him, you better be scared if you're hiding something and this guy's got you under questioning, because that guy is no joke. I can only imagine, like, if he took that type of, like, intent and attitude and meticulousness in regards to wrestling, I can't imagine what kind of a wrestler he was. He must have been amazing.
Well, he beat John Smith, who was
Oh,
Incredible.
Yeah, he
One of
beat
the
John
best.
Smith in the NCAA finals. Here's my thing about Jim Jordan is he's a goody two-shoot, never heard the guy cuss. But if he's really content that he believes Dr. Strauss didn't do anything, he's going to go on the stand eventually here shortly and put his hand on the Bible. And I'd like to see him say that that stuff didn't happen. If he does, then so be it. But man, to me, everybody and their brother knew about it.
Well, whether they knew about it or not, like you said, you weren't in a position to say anything. And I'm not saying, like, it's real easy to look at a situation in the past with today's goggles on.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And I'm not saying, like, he's guilty, he's this, that. In fact, we started this in before you got here. We didn't even want to talk about this stuff.
No, and I ask Mike that we don't talk about it. If you could edit out the Jordan stuff.
I'm cool with that. I'd like to keep in like your thoughts of him as a wrestler.
Okay, yeah. If you don't mind. But
I'll take care of that. Yeah.
Okay.
But here, let's just tie it up. Here, just so Jim Jordan as an instructor, your opinions.
Toughest dude, toughest 135, 145 pound guy at Ohio State ever. The only person that Mark Coleman feared from getting turned on top. His leg lace is unbelievable. His work ethic is unbelievable. Just a hammer.
That's awesome.
He's gonna go ahead.
Nice.
Okay, cool.
It's gonna get me in trouble if I say more.
You don't want that.
Let's just leave it at that. That's enough.
No, he is tough. And you asked Coleman, who was the guy he feared the most, was Jordan, who Coleman had 85 pounds on him.
Wow.
Wow.
Chris, you want to take us out of here?
Yeah. Man, that was just a lot of good information, a lot of good stuff. And a lot of the people who are MMA fans, especially nowadays, they don't understand the history and where things came from. And so that's what we like to do, and make sure everybody understands where this sport came from and, the direction it's headed now. Wasn't always that way. And people like you help make that happen. Thanks a lot, Nick. And thanks for giving us all this insight. I really appreciate it.
So Chris, let me ask you this real quick.
Let's hear it, baby.
You still fighting?
No,
You still
no,
fighting?
I'm retired finally.
Just with this old lady.
Was Yamas your last fight?
Yeah.
All right. God. And you're only 2 months younger than I.
Yeah, I'm 46 now. Yeah.
Good for you. That was a good tussle though, huh?
Man, I wish bare knuckle would have been around a little bit earlier. I retired from the UFC several years before that, and was watching a fight of Joe Riggs on Facebook, and it was him fighting over in England, bare knuckle. I was like, oh shit, I got to try this at least once. So got a hold of them and did over in England. And then they got a hold of me when they legalized it here and had me to do a couple fights.
Chris,
And,
you're a wrestler though, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I have a pro boxer as well, man. I mean, I started doing pro boxing.
He's
I can't do
13-1
anything
and 1
with
as
the
a pro
word fighting
boxer.
in it. Yeah. So
I got a question though. Before I know they wrapped up and stuff, but I'd like to see Nick. You said you had some regrets. Talk about that. Like what?
Yeah.
At what points have you thought like shit? I should have been doing this, or because talk about that. Talk about those regrets.
When you talk about regrets, in what context?
Like that you would have thought. What would have happened if you continued fighting?
could have kept fighting.
Okay. Yeah. I guess, looking how things evolved with Igor and him being the finals of the Pride 2000,
Yeah.
knowing that, in my opinion, and hopefully you find the video where he taps 2 times, knowing that I was right there, I do have regrets, but I got like an opportunity to make money that I thought was a good idea, and I took it, and I do have regret doing it. I regret not fighting again.
Man, you got hypnotized by Mark Coleman. That's what happened.
Coleman told me to keep fighting.
Yeah,
I'm like, I don't want to be dumb like you. I'm gonna. No, it sucks. Yes, I have regrets.
But you don't have any memory issues. Your body's not falling apart from fighting, maybe wrestling, but not fighting. So it's just you took a different path.
Now
you did it. Fantastic life experience.
My wife would disagree. She thinks I've had too many concussions. I do forget a lot of things, honestly.
So do I, though. That's your age, I think.
But on top of it, but you did watch. You did. I mean, Mark got hip replacement, and if you didn't get both done, I know he needs both, right? I mean,
he got them done 3 times.
Yeah, he bent him by going to the Ultimate Fighter and training again.
Yeah.
So good. All right. Want to try taking us out one more time, Chris?
No problem. Hey, once again, that was great stuff. Really appreciate all you've done for the sport. Like I said, we like to go back and find out where the sport comes from. And this is it, baby. This is the real deal right here. This is the sport in its infancy. So if we hadn't done this thing, you hadn't done it before me, hell, we wouldn't be where we're at now. So thank you for all you've done. And hopefully people get to learn and understand where the sport really comes from.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Nick.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.